This is a film about the informal business sector that by its very nature is left disenfranchised and paralysed by the decisions of local government authority. To truly understand this and its complexities, one needs to consider it within a global context. In a period where the world moves ever quicker into a corporatized model, especially within business and government, the implications, which affect the millions of growing impoverished individuals, can be catastrophic and in some cases very profound.
Well, who would have thought it? A poor 23-year-old Tunisian vegetable seller, probably the person who changed the world the most in 2011, although he wasn't alive to see it himself. His name was Mohamed Bouazizi. He was working in a small town in the middle of Tunisia called Sidi Bouzid, and he had a vegetable cart just across the street from the governor's office. Now, one day, an official tried to confiscate the cart because the government said that he didn't have a license to trade. Mr. Bouazizi had had this happen to him before, and he was very upset, and he tried to stop it happening. And he says that when he did this, the woman official slapped him in the face. This really took him over the edge, so he went into the middle of the street, covered himself with paint thinner, and then set himself alight. His cousin, in the meantime, used his mobile phone to start filming the protests which developed outside the governor's office. The mobile phone footage was shown on the internet. It was broadcast on Al Jazeera. By then, Tunisia was on fire itself. There were thousands of people protesting in the capital Tunis on January the 14th when I arrived in the city. And by the end of that day, the president of Tunisia, Ben Ali, had fled the country. And the person who had started this in Tunisia was Bouazizi himself, who was by now dead. But basically what he did was to start a domino effect that spread from Tunisia to Egypt, to Libya, to Bahrain, to Yemen, and of course to Syria now. The twin evils, if you like, of economic failure and state repression, embodied in the life and indeed in the death of Mohamed Bouazizi, basically encouraging Arabs and others to rise up and to try and get rid of the people who had been keeping them down.
The Arab Spring was a stark reminder to authorities that the dignity and economic freedoms of vulnerable individuals was not something to be taken lightly. The fact that an incident involving a lowly street trader could spark an unprecedented movement of civil revolt, including millions of citizens flooding the streets and resulting in the unseating of long-endured regimes in North Africa and the Middle East, proves how unsettling decisions made regarding the livelihoods of the most vulnerable can have serious unintended consequences. We now move the story down south, specifically Cape Town. This city and its surrounding suburbs are not immune to the growing need to clearly define and fairly manage a vibrant informal economy.
Local is lekker. It's about reducing the green miles, the distance of food travels. Informal trading is also partly about the colour, the charm and the liveliness of our society, and about the colour of our public spaces and our streets. Informal trading is also about civility, about the sociability of our communities. It's about what we call the cityness, the nature, the essence of the fabric of the cities that we occupy. Informal trading is also about affordability of commodities. It's about ordinary people's access to services and supplies. It's about fuller employment. Informal trading is also about livelihoods, as you all know full well.
But I think it is a very important question. I think that many people look at our labour markets, particularly international colleagues, and say, why are more people who are, we have one of the highest unemployment rates in the whole world. Why are more people not working in the informal economy? So I think that there are, we've got to, as a city, look at some of the barriers to entry. And I think that's why it's important to look at the legislative environment as one area.
When I think of Cape Town, I think of intersecting networks of individuals, and that include, of course, the informal settlement and informal traders. These networks come from numerous places. Some of them are historical, some of them are cultural and social, but many of them are economic. They bring to people on the basis of doing business with one another. And when it comes to business, everybody speaks the same language.
Although being able to describe the informal economy's landscape and recognizing a need for legislative reform as well as addressing the civil rights of individuals within this sector, the City of Cape Town and its surrounding communities are left lacking in the implementation of a working model. We now move our attention to the town of Stellenbosch. The town is a mecca for tourists from around the world and has established a vibrant community of trade. Its wealth and surrounding beauty has made it a landmark in South Africa and a highly sought after area to do business. On the outskirts, however, there is also an informal community living in impoverished conditions where people also seek opportunity. And this brings us to the incident in question, the one in which this film will revolve. The forced eviction of a group of informal traders in the centre of Stellenbosch. This had been their trading site for over 15 years, and most had established a strong rapport with tourists as well as locals. But on the 16th of January 2013, they were no longer allowed to trade at this site. Like the actions in Tunisia, this one takes on the common themes. It affects ordinary, vulnerable people.
I'm Michael Asser. My reason is that these people, they want us to leave this place on which we have been trading here for a long time, making living here. They want to chase us out because of the political issue, like there's a poor having stands there, shops there. They want to chase us out just because they want more customers. And they are selling us where there's no business, which is not right. It's not fair. We don't know, we don't know where to go now.
This inevitably causes the proud amongst the group to rise up and protest.
So we have decided that we will not surrender. That is the reason why you see us here today. We are not working, but we have decided that we will not surrender. We will stay here until a good decision is made. We have right as citizens of this country to express our right of freedom if a law is passed by the government and that law is not in accordance with our wishes. It is our basic right to express it. So that is the reason we stand here today to express that right. So we will not give up. We will be here every day, every morning until a good decision is made, if only that decision will please us. So we will be here even tomorrow, even the next tomorrow we will be here.
The knock-on effect of this is that an antagonistic climate is created between protesters and law enforcement, which inevitably increases the chance of violence.
I've got you, bro, eh? Nice. Beautiful, eh? I've got you. Beautiful. Smile, smile. Smile. Nice one.
I've got nothing to hide, my friend.
Nice
Nothing
one,
to hide
eh?
whatsoever.
Enjoy, man.
The first time that I heard about the event where the informal traders were expelled from the space that they were trading from near the Rhenisch Church, I was walking in the town in early 2013 in January with my son, and we noticed a sort of a protest of people handing out a petition, and we went up to find out from these guys what is going on. I think we both were outraged at just the total injustice of denying these people an opportunity to make a living, and something that they had done fairly well, and they'd become a bit of a fixture in the town for tourists, and they were clearly not a problem, and we couldn't work out why they should have been a problem. So I think we came home with quite a lot of strong feelings, not really knowing where to take it and what to do with it, and feeling quite helpless.
It was becoming increasingly clear that the actions of the local authorities in Stellenbosch had left a group of hard-working, entrepreneurial individuals without the means to support themselves and their families. Official communication regarding the incident was published in the local newspaper, with narrative being that the evicted craft market traders were to move to a location behind the local market, about a half a kilometre away from their current site, which can only be described as a crime-infested dungeon. How is it possible that a municipality claiming to support local economic development and a corporate tourism identity that boasts about multiple sector inclusion not even have the insight to recognize the dynamics of informal trade in its own town, and by default exercising open prejudice against the sector?
So the municipality just takes its own decision without just calling them and involve them in decision making. What we would like to know is that we would like from in future and from municipality, when they take decisions, they must come maybe to form a committee, a small structure of these people, call them in their structures, have some representatives, and find out from them how do they feel about this thing.
Apparently the guy that buys our permits was sent back to find out what is the trading by number for those people who want permits. And when he went back there, new trading by numbers was given to him without further consultation from us. Now how can they leave the new numbers with the girl writing out the permits without telling us as of Saturday the 19th there will be new numbers for the people? It wasn't given to us at all. We feel it's not right to do that. The craft market and this flea market is two separate markets.
Okay,
completely.
that's what needs to be defined.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Where is the tourist buses going to come in? Where are they going to park? Right? Is here eatery for the tourists who comes to Stellenbosch? There's no decent place for them to go sit down and have a cold glass of wine. There's no decent cafe here for them to sit and have lunch. And I mean, after all said and done, that is what people come to Stellenbosch for.
We've got a problem that there's a location that we stay in, this African location that Kayamand, where people sit. Our African people are not given chances to come to do marketing in this town. Where they have plans of business, the municipality will tell them no, it ends up in Kayamand. You cannot come to town to export, to advertise your own things. For instance, there's a carnival that is going to start right now, very soon. If you want to go to the carnival and sell your things, the process is too long for you because Africans don't know it's a racist town.
It was soon revealed that the Rhenisch Church had been a major instigator of this eviction, with multiple threatening letters sent to the municipality council.
Want die mense se tyd is onkal weg, hulle moet lankal weg gesit. Ja, Saturday is only lankal moet hulle weg gesit. Van dag 1 af toe hulle hier begin het, tot ons kapsie gemaak dat hulle kan hier staan. Van dag 1 af. Nou is dit 18 jaar, nou daar is die mense weg. Wie se skuld is die wat die mense hier gestel het? Die fucking munisipale se skuld.
I'm just trying to get some insight from the church.
You must come and speak up when the church is finished.
Yeah,
Then you must come, not now.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
Otherwise,
yeah, fair enough.
these people of this church goes up to shit.
Yeah, sure.
I tried to contact somebody at the church because I started hearing stories that the church had initiated this move, and it wasn't really going anywhere. But I think when I spoke with you, we both decided that we needed to get together and talk about what we could do and not just let this event disempower us, and sit with our own feelings and our anger and whatever. So we got together, and there were a couple of people, including some of the traders who I met through you, and one of your other colleagues, Pierre, who's an informal trader himself, but wasn't involved in this particular expulsion, was also part of that process, and we discussed what we could do, and I think we came up with the idea that we needed to approach the authorities and tell them what our understanding was, because you guys had done some research of the National Business Act and the procedure which had or had not been followed in this case, and that there were glaring sort of inconsistencies and unprocedural implementation of action, and that we needed to actually go to the authorities and talk to them about this.
Now that it was clear an injustice based on ethnic, racial and economic prejudice had occurred, it was important to start getting an understanding of where the authorities stood on this matter and why such a decision had been made. Our attempts to officially contact the Rhenisch Church were met with a deafening silence.
We did I prepared an email to the elders on the advice of the Reverend Daniels to get their view formally of what he had told me, of the traders and their side of the story. That was many, many months ago, and as you know, we're still waiting for that email to come back to us.
Stellenbosch 360, the corporate tourist body, seemed disattached from the whole situation and kept referring us to the municipality and its executive. A meeting was set up between a group of concerned citizens, the deputy mayor, members of his executive, as well as some council members. We had an hour to discuss the matter, and in the end it did not prove to be a very fruitful meeting. The case had already been handed over to the municipality's legal department, and those present seemed incapable of dealing with the issue sufficiently. There were also allegations of illegal substances being sold from this trading site. We took these allegations seriously and felt it necessary to contact the South African Police Service for an official statement as to whether a case had been opened in this regard. On first contact with the police service, it seemed as if a meeting regarding this matter was accepted, only to be eventually contacted with a final bizarre response as to why we could no longer further our investigation with the police force.
You're part of the community in Stellenbosch, you're part of the business community, and we as a council need to act in a responsible manner. And now people hide against laws. I mean, they passed the law, but I mean, we had apartheid laws in this country. We had discriminatory laws in this country, and the laws got changed. If they promulgated something, you can promulgate it again. It's not cast in stone, and that is what I've asked him to do. You didn't tell us, you didn't give us all the facts in the council, even though I voted against it, but the other councillors didn't have those facts. So they will either say, okay, ignore these facts as well, and we'll stick to what we've decided. But then everybody knows exactly what their stance is. I mean, there the mayor has said in a council meeting, you were there. He supports you. He supports the traders. They're part of all this, they're part of the community. They're there to help. But they didn't say they voted to deproclamate the site. They stuck up their hands. I mean, I feel embarrassed when I was listening to this thing. I don't know how you felt, but I mean, they're all on your side.
Everyone's on their side.
Yeah.
Everyone is on your side. It makes me cry every single night I go to bed. I think of you. Every single night. I'm praying for you every single day.
So, as you then remember, we actually met the Deputy Mayor with all his executive directors, and in that meeting we discussed the issue. We raised the inconsistencies and the irregularities in the implementation of this expulsion in terms of the National Business Act, and we also raised the fact that we understood the Rhenisch Church had been behind the expulsion by complaining and threatening to litigate the council based on an unfounded assumption that the traders had been damaging their property and defecating on their walls and all these horrible things. Apart from the Deputy Mayor's sort of response and his own anguish at what had happened, I think we were struck at the complete silence of virtually all the executive directors, apparently because they appeared to be disempowered in the process themselves. It seemed to have been handed straight over to their legal department who hired a legal advisor and a legal specialist, and the main aim of this approach was to avoid litigation at all costs and to effectively buckle into the church's demands.
By this time a court case was in full swing, but anyone that has ever had to appeal an injustice in a courtroom will know what a burden it is, emotionally and financially. The craft market traders' interaction with their lawyers give an insight into the extra turmoil caused by this event.
No. Yes, but I want to know, does the fees go on?
It's going to be a normal pay.
Yes, but now I don't understand. Wasn't the work all done yesterday? Why were we charged for yesterday?
No. It's like an appointment.
Yes?
And you must be the appointment that is from the other side.
Yes, but you just confirm with Mr. Vasasi, please, then, because in the advocate's office, he told us his fee was 5,000 rand. That's it. He didn't tell us that it's still going on and on.
Okay.
So if he's got time, can he please just phone us just to clarify, because we don't understand it. That 10,000 rand was for the advocate.
Okay.
And the advocate told us on, when were we there? Wednesday. He told us that his fees up until all the work that is being done until Friday. And then Mr. Vasasi says, and his fees is 5. So I don't know where the others is coming from now.
Can you put an email? Can you reply to my email and put it, point to point? And say what was he doing or what you understand
Yes.
going on, and then we will reply like that. That's much better, than having a conversation on the telephone. It's become confused.
Okay, but isn't it better to have a conversation with Mr. Vasasi, seeing that he's the one that told us the amount?
Okay, so can you put it in the email and I'll forward it to you. Not giving your reply.
Okay.
That's much
Okay.
better. You won't be further.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
As we delved deeper into the law that dictates informal trade in South Africa, it was astonishing to find that there was massive discrepancies in how the law was interpreted.
The administrator, who today is labelled the Premier, it goes further to state, sir, that no bylaw shall require a person to carry a permit, a certificate of approval, or letter of authority in respect of such business. It goes further to state, sir, that no bylaw shall restrict a person to specified place, specified time, or specified goods and services. There is a set of standard regulations as published under Provincial Notice 404 of August 1992, which lays out common human behaviour.
The man on the street doesn't know what is Section 6A. He doesn't know what is the Business Act. What he does know is that he is confronted by a government official wearing a uniform, telling him that unless he has a piece of paper, he will get arrested. He will get his goods confiscated. He must obey the law. And with all due respect, most of the people are law-abiding citizens.
The city is trying to pass a new informal bylaw which will unite the different municipalities and eliminate the confusion. Although in its 11th draft, the proposed law still has a long way to go before it is passed. It is not yet law.
The proposed bylaw that we want to bring in, the amended bylaw next year, is designed to tighten up and assist this situation. We are basing our current actions on existing legislation.
But in terms of the Business Act, no bylaw may require a street vendor or hawker to hold a permit.
Every metro in the entire country permits traders in their demarcated trading area.
The Businesses Act doesn't require permits if you want to trade.
And I'm suggesting to you that the technicalities that you might be describing either might be too simplistic or not researched well enough.
The Businesses Act is superior to the bylaw, and if there's a conflict between the Act and the bylaw, the Act will prevail.
The Act does indeed say that no bylaw shall require a street vendor, peddler or hawker to hold a license, permit, authority, certificate or approval in respect of such business. And it is clear that the issue on a national level is one of major concern for the authorities, who seem to be ignoring current legislation and are trying to usher in a model of surveillance of informal business, which seems completely contradictory to current legislation.
South Africa's Trade and Industry Ministry says that the small business sector, which includes the informal economy, is under threat from illegally run businesses operating in the country. In order to root out the problem, it wants every business to apply for a license. And if you currently have one, you need to re-register with the local municipality. Government wants a database of legally run businesses so that their activities can be tracked.
We have a fairly significant illicit economy in this country. A number of people coming in and operating businesses, particularly in low-income areas, probably based on illegal imports, substandard products, not paying their taxes and so on. And this is creating unfair competition to a number of township-based businesses, small businesses.
But business, especially small business and the informal sector, are unhappy. Many fear the bill will hamper free trade and further limit job creation. Unemployment in South Africa is already at over 25%.
This bill will fail because the enforcement capacity isn't there. But secondly, when it seeks to register businesses, the capacity at local or municipal level isn't there either. Municipal authorities have difficulty delivering basic services, sanitation, water, electricity, and now you're placing an additional bureaucratic burden on them. And we're deeply concerned about their capacity to deal with that burden. What tends to happen when we introduce new pieces of legislation or raise the bar on legislation is that compliant businesses seek to be further compliant, and businesses which are not compliant continue to operate in such a manner.
The bill in its current form will also give authorities the power to shut down businesses and confiscate permits if they are believed to be operating illegally.
If we catch you and we convict you of being involved in any of these activities, then in one way or another we'll take you off the business register. We're going to have to look at precisely how that's done and what the different penalties are going to be for different categories of offences, but that's the idea. So it would be easy in, and then you are involved in illegal activity, we take you out.
Amazingly, in the city of Johannesburg, the authorities have already begun implementing a pseudo-legislation regarding informal trade. This begs the question of how authorities can implement new legislation while current legislation still exists.
We've done over 30 streets so far. So, and 30 streets? 30, more than 30 streets. And we're talking in the region of about 4,000 traders. There are those that are legal. There are those that are illegal. So out of the 4,000, we have about 900 that have the smart cards that can trade in the city.
The implications of this are astonishing and give a huge insight into how the South African authorities view the informal sector. It also questions our very structure of democracy and puts our own story of informal trade into perspective on a national level.
Johannesburg's informal traders have won their court bid to have the city's eviction orders overturned. Thousands of hawkers booted off the streets of the city centre at the end of September, you'll recall. But it seems Johannesburg Metro cops haven't been told about the court order. We're being told that they have arrested several traders who have returned to the streets this afternoon. Wayne Minnaar speaks for the JMPD, joins us here on Newsnight. Mr. Minnaar, good evening to you. Can you confirm that traders have been arrested?
Good evening, Jeremy. Yes, I can confirm that there was an arrest. I can also confirm that an attorney was arrested in the Joburg CBD today for obstructing officers in the execution of duty and for inciting traders to act against the officers.
In what respect was she inciting traders, and in what way were they acting against officers, Mr. Minnaar?
Look, the officers were having a mandate to uphold and enforce city bylaws, and when the traders had obstructed the officers, and when the attorney had obstructed the officers, that's when the officers had to act.
In what respect were they obstructing your officers?
The officers have a responsibility to enforce bylaws and to uphold the city bylaws.
You're not answering the question. How were they obstructing?
They were literally stopping officers who had to be impounding goods for contravening of city bylaws.
But they have just been given a court order, Mr. Minnaar, to return to the streets to trade. Were you not in contravention of the constitutional court order yourselves?
Yes, no, look, as far as the court ruling is concerned, the JMPD will be advised by the legal department of the city of Joburg as to whether to enforce bylaws or not to enforce bylaws.
Let me put it to you, Mr. Minnaar, that your officers were actually jumping the gun, that these traders were perfectly entitled to be back on the streets. You hadn't done your job, you hadn't heard about the court order, and you were simply arresting them for what you thought was a flagrant disregard for the law when they in fact were entitled to be there.
No, the officers and the JMPD are aware of the court ruling. However, the JMPD has a legal mandate to uphold and to enforce city bylaws.
But what bylaws were being broken, Mr. Minnaar?
There are a range of bylaws.
Well, give me two of them that were being broken. I'll make your job easy for you.
Okay. The one, trading in an area which is prohibited is a contravention of the bylaw. Secondly, trading in any area that is going to cause congestion is a second contravention of bylaw.
What area were they trading in which could have caused congestion?
The area where they would be trading was the area which was prohibited by traders.
Which area was this, Mr. Minnaar?
In the Joburg CBD.
Which area specifically were they arrested in?
No, that I will have to get confirmation of by the senior control.
You sure that your officers, Mr. Minnaar, were simply not being heavy-handed?
No, the officers are definitely not heavy-handed. They will continue with law enforcement activities whilst observing traders until such time they're advised otherwise by the legal department of the city.
But you are aware that a constitutional court ruling earlier today allows them to trade?
Oh yes, absolutely. However, officers also have a responsibility to enforce the city bylaws.
In case these traders cause congestion?
For any what reason there may be for contravening of such bylaws.
Thank you very much for joining us. Wayne Minnaar speaks for the JMPD with us here on Newsnight.
The Act that regulates informal trade is the Business Act, and specifically Section 6A, Power of Local Authority. To the Stellenbosch Municipality's credit, they at least based their decision on existing national legislation. But let's look a bit deeper into what the law says and how the decision was assumed. The official reason for the eviction was, quote, the site was no longer suitable for trade, and, quote, trading at this site was in contravention of the Business Act. Citing a local authority may, with approval of the administrator, make bylaws regarding the restriction of carrying on of such business contiguous to a church or other place of worship. The obvious question would then be, why was this site made available for trade 15 years ago, knowing full well it was contiguous to a church? And what conditions had changed to make it no longer suitable for trade? Let us consider some other inconsistencies in the implementation. In this section F, it describes what an authority's responsibilities are to make the public aware of a decision of deproclamation and says, the local authority shall, at least 21 days before the last day on which objections may be submitted in terms of such notice, cause a copy of said notice to be displayed at a suitable place in or near the area concerned. At no point was this complied with, and no record of a notice was ever displayed, but rather in the 14th of December 2012 Provincial Gazette, a mere month before the eviction was implemented, a notification was published announcing the deproclamation, citing the date for public comment to be submitted before 4 p.m. on 4th November 2011, a year in the past. A letter was also drafted by the Stellenbosch Civic Association, raising the point that not all information was included in the municipality's decision, most notably the fact that some traders had paid for permits for up to a year in advance. They also reminded the council of how decisions like this were a remnant of previous regimes that governed South Africa in the past, and could incur a serious legal backlash. So among all these inconsistencies within the legal procedure of deproclamation, the trading site was deproclamated and the traders had officially lost their right to trade. In the months following the eviction, a majority of the traders were left destitute and having to seek work elsewhere. Word was getting around of the manner in which the evictions were handled by the municipality, and at a municipal meeting on black business in Stellenbosch, Mayor Conrad Sadigo expressed his dismay and embarrassment over the municipality's handling of the issue.
I'm prepared to face the music and say, this is it. What do we do? What is the best way? Let's look at this, empowering people, entrepreneurship and stuff. And I must say, can I say to you today, I'm embarrassed about the way we went about the informal traders here in Stellenbosch. It should never have happened. We were quick to remove those people, and now it's a process to get those people into a decent place. This is not supporting this. This was a big mistake from the municipality, whatever the reasons.
Yeah, Mike, you look, we're back here today. I think it's just about a year now that the informal traders has been moved off the site. We as the councillors in the Stellenbosch, at that time with the Stellenbosch Civic Association, we changed our name now to Sabania. We opposed vehemently the decision of the council to have this land reproclamated, to take away the rights for the traders that was here for 16 to 18 years. I know of some of the traders that even had permits until June last year, when they were evicted around about March, April. And the municipality didn't take that into account. But what is of concern to me is, since the traders has been removed from here, I have written letters and emails to the municipality last year and this year as well about this informal parking that's taking place here. I've seen cars here parked here, people come here that works in the CBD, they come and park their cars here. They're flaunting our signs, our no parking signs. I've asked them, where's our law enforcement people to make sure that the site stays open as was promulgated by the DA majority within the council. And they just said no, they know about it, they're aware of it, they're doing something, but for 8-9 months they haven't done nothing. This is just what happened. Look here, how the cars has been damaging our property. Look there was a tree on that side there, right? That's not happening. Talking about the church, I haven't seen one letter from the church to the municipality to complain about what's happening here, about the cars being parked here. Like they complained, apparently, about the informal traders that was here, their neighbors for 16 years. But what did the municipality do when they removed the informal traders? They were embarrassed and they moved the guys onto the braak, right? So that they can trade and get an income. But the braak is not zoned at the moment for informal trading. So again, the municipality is saying, flaunt the law, flaunt the bylaws, flaunt our trading spaces, because we are too embarrassed of what we've done here. So they continue illegally trading on the braak. I'm not saying that they must remove the traders on the braak, but what I'm saying is they haven't even started the process, as far as I'm aware, to deproclamate that braak for a trading space, for those informal traders to be there legally. Because anybody in the public comes and says the municipality allowing people now to informally trade like they are allowing people here to park here illegally, we're becoming a lawless town. This place would have been looked better if the traders were still here than having this here, having this lawlessness going on here. But different strokes for different folks. This is how it operates in this town.
After over a year of toil, struggle, and an expensive lawsuit that was never resolved, through pure persistence and courage, as well as the embarrassment suffered by the Stellenbosch Municipality, the traders managed to secure an alternative trading site. The issue, however, is not resolved legally. Their current site has not been proclamated under law, and they live with the fear that their struggle could continue at any moment. in conclusion, the point of this film is to highlight the plight of the vulnerable among our society and how they are considered by government, as well as the disturbing way in which, through sheer force of unjust decisions, the lives of many can be decided upon by a few. The implications of government not abiding to its own national legislation as set out in the Constitution is something that should make us all sit up and take notice of the decisions made and implemented by those to whom we give the power of authority.